Lawi. I'm the current vice chair. It took over from Sheila. Sheila was not cool enough, so I had to take over so that I can increase the coolness. I am also the managing director of Pangaea Trust, my 8 to 5. We support businesses with access to capital, competence, and network. Happy to be here. I think I know almost 80% of the people around already, which is good. And thank you, Sheila, for organizing this and also for bringing us together to have this conversation. And also continue having informal dialogue, because that's what will continue to increase our bonds and to increase our thinking and also to pursue same interest. So I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Anne. I think we'll go to Charles.
Oh, good. Thank you so much, Sheila, for inviting me. My name is Charles Shaka, and I'm the general manager of 250 Startup, which is the tech. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, which is really the tech incubation program that are really here in Kigali, the only tech incubation in Kigali, which started in 2017, and so far I've run almost 5 cohorts with other programs that really are moving concurrently. And happy to meet you guys. Hope we're going to explore more today together. That's it. So much. I guess I know only Anne, but as of now, now we know each other that are on this call. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. We'll go to Victor.
Is there any other Victor?
Victor, the main man. The main man.
Yeah, so my name is Victor Otieno. I run a company called Vifa Consult as the managing director. Our focus really is around, consultancy and research, focusing on startups and SMEs. I'm so thrilled and excited to have this conversation, and we hope that something fruitful, something practical would come out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. I think we'll go to Pray God. You're muted.
Muted. Hi, everyone. My name is Prego Jaffet, and I work with TSA, Tanzania Startup Association, as a programs manager. And TSA is an umbrella-based, an umbrella organization that's membership-based, and we try to bring the stakeholders of the startup ecosystem in Tanzania together, starting from the startups themselves and the enablers such as the innovation hubs and even the different projects and other organizations that are enabling or supporting or providing any kind of service to startups together, so as to create an environment where startups can start, grow, and scale in Tanzania. I know some of you, Sheila, I know Victor, probably Basil and Brenda. So, hi.
Thank you. Let me see. I see also Magdalene. If you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sheila, for the invitation. My name is Jepkemoi Magdalene. I'm from Eldoret. It's in the Western region for the East Africa, the other countries, Tanzania, it's in the Western region of Kenya. So I run a tech innovation hub called Eldo Hub, and I'm the founder and the executive director. I'm also a member of ASEC, Startup Enablers Association in Kenya, as well as the Association of Countrywide Innovation Hubs. Thank you, and back to you, Sheila.
Thanks, Magdalene. I am checking to see if we have any other of our
It
speakers.
does. They are the transparent one. And you remember you asked me for this.
Thank you. So I think we can start. I'll hand it over to Victor to give us a context of why we're having this discussion. And then I will come to our panelists. I believe they've introduced themselves. So in the interest of time, I think we'll get to the questions. And once the other panelists join us, I think we will be able to give them a chance to also speak. So Victor, carry on.
We can't hear you, Victor. You're on mute. And you're so happy.
Man, as in, I was talking like I was. But good morning, everyone. I'm assuming that we are all in the same time zone, so it's still very early in the morning. We are very excited. Personally, I'm very excited to having this conversation. I think it's long overdue. And if you knew how fast we were able to talk, to conceive this idea, it's something that we did with Sheena in a day. I think I just called up Sheila, and we had a coffee, and you know, we said let's have this conversation. And of course, we are very, very much excited. And my role is very simple. I don't want to spend too much time blabbering over a lot of data and information. But my role is to really give context as to context for this conversation, and the context is that you know, we are in an East African federation. We are in an East African kind of a framework that. Sorry, let me just give me a sec. My machine. Yeah, sorry, my machine was hanging. I was talking and the thing was hanging. So basically, the idea is to give context as to this conversation, and of course, we are all within the East African community, which of course currently is constituted, I think, over 5 countries. And the idea of the idea around this conversation was that within the region there is a lot of conversations taking place at different levels. Number one, at a political level. Number two, at an economic level, and number three, at a social level. And even as this conversation is continuing to take place, we realize that the conversation around innovation is something that maybe is going to the back burner. And of course, this now prompted us to really start asking ourselves, what is the role of the innovation ecosystem within the region, and now how is it evolving as the East Africa community is evolving? So of course, that's the context under which we are having this conversation. Of course, if we're looking at the East Africa community, this is a conversation that started off, I think, in 1993, if I'm not wrong, and basically what happened is the different member states then, which was Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, thought it would be good for for the East Africa community to have conversations around integration. So of course, then in 1993 there was the tripartite commission, which basically was the forerunner to the ESC federation. So of course, the ESC was established formally was established in the year 2000. And as you can see there, this is basically the milestone or the different stages that the community has gone through as member states between 1993 up to now. So we are somewhere between common markets and political federation. We are yet to reach the point where we have an integrated political ecosystem. But even as we discuss this, then the question that still begs is what role does innovation really play in terms of assisting or enabling the continued integration of the community? So of course, I would not want to bore you with details in terms of the different the technical things that have taken place so far. But what we know is by 2005, we had what we are calling a common external tariff, where the different member states within the community were develop a framework for allowing imports from third-party states outside the EAC. That is a major milestone that took place in 2005. And of course, the idea around the ESC is to try to build a common market. When we were doing the research, one of the things that stood out for us was, yes, ESC is trying to build a common market, but the focus is highly skewed towards the natural resources. So the conversation that is happening right now is ESC has a population of 134 million people. How can we be able to ensure that different businesses or different SMEs are able to access the block in terms of market? And of course, this is heavily tied with manufacturing and natural resources. Yeah, so that's the strategy that is currently being deployed, and that's the angle that the different member states are trying to use to be able to develop the ESC community. So the question that begs then is, what is the role of the innovation community in this entire process? So if the innovation community does not speak out, then probably it is assumed that they're quiet or they're satisfied wherever they are. So I think the point of this conversation was to kickstart that conversation in terms of what is the state of play of the innovation community in the region, and what role can the innovation community play to further the agenda around the East African community. So of course, like I mentioned, the current strategy under the ESC industry policy is to harness natural resources that is across the region, and to spur economic development underpinned on manufacturing, which is a good thing, but it's only one way of looking at socioeconomic development. So I think over the last decade, different parts or different continents or different states have realized that innovation and the technology, ICT, etc. is really is increasingly playing a major role in terms of economic development. And just as an example, we've seen, under the Global Innovation Index, we are seeing, different countries trying to compete to, really sharpen their skills in terms of use and adoption of innovation towards economic development. And of course, that is something that as different member states, as well as as a region, it's something that has potential to really support socioeconomic development for different entrepreneurs and different people within the different countries. And of course, seeing the trend around, we've seen different states, like we've seen Tunisia, Senegal, etc., enact startup bills, which of course is geared towards supporting the ecosystem. And I think, and this is a trend that is increasingly being seen across the world. So of course, at a national level, we are seeing different countries responding, and of course, even the member states that are represented here, I'm sure you are in one stage or another in terms of developing legislation that can be able to support startups and innovation. So it is upon that context that we are saying, yes, we can have conversations around supporting innovation at the national level, but the question is, even as a region, given that we are in a East Africa community trading bloc, then how can we be able to upscale that, or how can we be able to have meaningful conversations to ensure that we're able to get synergy across board? So of course, this conversation does not impede any national legislation or national action that is being taken to support startups. What we are saying is we have the East Africa community, we have an industry policy or a strategic framework or strategic document for developing the trading bloc. But the question around innovation has not or is still not being addressed. So this conversation we are having should be able to kickstart that conversation. And of course, this conversation is underpinned or is based on the strategic document, where there's a provision for promoting targeted industry value chain, which can have a knock-on effect across the region in terms of being able to involve or benefit the different member states. So innovation is one of those value chains that must be considered as we move forward towards, as we talk about the East African community. So of course, this birthed the conversation of us developing a 3-part webinar series, where the idea is to talk to the different stakeholders, broadly ESOs, startups, and startup investors, to just get a feel of what the state of play is, what is happening on the ground. Is there traction? Is there no tractions? And what lessons can we be able to learn? So basically, that's that in terms of a snapshot or the context of this conversation. Of course, we don't just want to talk. We want to talk and find ways of reaching out to the different state and non-state actors that can be able to take some of the recommendations that from the conversations we are having. So number one is, as you can notice, the call is being recorded. Not the call, the meeting is being recorded. And number two, we plan to do a comprehensive report around the conversations we are having. Of course, with all of us being partners, and probably we can just share that document as widely as possible to really have innovation and the startup ecosystem across the region being a key agenda moving forward as we talk about the ESC community. Without further much ado, I would stop there and now allow Sheila to take over. Karibu sana, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Victor, for that context setting presentation. I would like to wish our Muslim brothers who've joined us today happy Eid Mubarak to all of you. And thank you for joining us on a day that you're supposed to be celebrating. You don't take that for granted. We know it's a holiday in Kenya tomorrow, but I believe for most countries it's today. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll get straight into it. And I will just ask at least a speaker from each country to just give us the context around their country, the innovation space. How is it? What are the advancements that have happened, in the past few years, if any? And, is there any synergies in your ecosystem? Just give us, a brief overview of what is happening in your country. So I think we will start with Anne Lawi to give us context of Kenya.
Thank you. And I'll share this with Magdalene. So happy to have someone to take a pie with me. I know the ecosystem story go back a couple of years, and I'm glad to say from my university days, I started in the ecosystem in North Africa then as an intern, and I was just joining an organization. There weren't an ecosystem. There wasn't an ecosystem as per se. I was also a first year in the university, and they were trying to establish a support mechanism that can be able to give businesses, a soft landing as they start out. And I didn't know what exactly they were doing, but I loved what they were doing. And I remember later on, we started talking to Kenyatta University. And when I talk of this, I'm talking to 204 when I was in first year in university, so it's back then. And started talking to Kenyatta University, Professor Bwisa. He was a professor of entrepreneurship, and he was talking about incubation. I'm wondering what is incubation, and from academic angle and what they are doing and what they were testing out. And I remember us having different sessions to just try out incubation. I go back to that and I feel so nostalgic. Because then what we were doing then in South Africa is facilitating business from Scandinavian countries to start operating in East African markets and establish grounds, and would match them to local companies and then fast-tracking that to 2010, 2011. And the rest of the players, things had spin in a different direction in Growth Africa. We were still in the ecosystem, they were still doing that. But I moved on to a different pair. And that's when the ecosystem started growing towards what would call the first players in the market then, who iHub, NILAB. iLab came later than, there was this hype about the ecosystem and growing and startups and all that, and there's so many competition. So one of the key things when I look back then, I see competition and opportunities for people to pitch played a very big role in creating the enabling environment, and also having a place where you can get feedback. Also, I believe that created traction for the ecosystem to an extent where if government wanted to do something, and remember at that point also there was M-Pesa then from 2000 that was creating a lot of vibe about innovation in the ecosystem. And then at the ground level, there are all these competitions that are happening, and different ideas are coming up. More players started coming in the ecosystem, and more support organization for different growth tracks, in the sense that business are being supported in different stages of growth. What I take out of that and what I have seen is I have seen that we have done a lot of progress. We have, as an ecosystem, we have also generated or built a lot of support, entrepreneurs support organization. And there has been an enabling environment to let those organizations thrive, grow. But also at the same time, there has been not a consistent support structure to create opportunities that can grow such ecosystem in a manner that they need to. And in this case, it's because I have visited different ecosystems, and I have seen how they have grown. I have seen the direction they have grown. And I think we have had opportunity to be able to run with that kind of opportunities. And one of them is, for example, for any entrepreneur support organization to grow, they need to have a sustainable business model. Are we able to create an environment where that can thrive? Do we have that? That will come with one, deliberate effort, support from the regulators or the government. Secondly, the businesses that are coming out of the support organization, do they have the kind of support, as much as they can get business support? Do they have the funds that they require? Yes, there are those who are able to, but most will struggle because they need the seed capital that they require at the onset. So key to that is, as much as there is support, what are the other building stones that we also need to be cognizant of and put a deliberate effort? Fast forward 2017, 2018, conversation happened of how do we create one voice? How do we create a platform where we can be able to speak in one voice? And because as much as there were so many support entrepreneurship support organizations, we also needed a voice where we can be able to speak and be able to lobby, be able to ask for a seat on the table. And that's how ASEC was born. It was born out of an opportunity, and we spoke from different hub representation, and we felt for us to be able to negotiate these kind of opportunities, we need to have a vehicle that speak on behalf of the ecosystem, and ASEC was born. ASEC stands for Association of Startup and SMEs and Employers of Kenya. I got registered around 2018, 2019, got operationalized, got some support, and that's where I serve as a vice chair. And I have seen a lot of progress, because after that, then the conversation on startup bill, which is the other building stone of the policies and enabling environment that we are creating. Because as much as you can have all this support, what are the enabling, how do you create a structure to support the businesses that you're turning out of these hubs? Remember, most of the support also at a national level will be directed or injected into a structured system. And that was lacking, and that's what is happening with ASEC. I'm glad we have made those steps. I have seen we have collaborated a lot and have conversation with Tanzania happening, creating their own association. We have had conversation with Rwanda when they were setting up their own association. But we still, I believe we are still in early days of what we can be able to do. We are still have a lot of work ahead of us to be able to create even better enabling environment for the businesses that we support. So Magdalene.
Thank you, Anne. And I think for me, I'll kind of talk about the ecosystem. I'll just add on what you've already mentioned, and I don't want to kind of repeat what you've already said. And first, also I think the ecosystem, initially, we saw the gaps that, so many of the programs or the entrepreneurship support organizations were based mainly in Nairobi and some few major cities or towns in the country. So we saw an opportunity to bring together those young people or anyone who was working on a different platform just to support entrepreneurs, support innovators across the country. And we found out that there were organizations or enablers who were just doing things on their own. So we decided to come together as an association of countrywide innovation hub and decided, we have different challenges that we are facing as not really trying to compare ourselves with Nairobi, but we wanted to kind of, there are unique challenges which we face outside in terms of sourcing for funds, in terms of, creating a sustainable model so that, we can continue supporting these young people, operation, building structures and all that. So we decided probably also if we can come together and have a voice and be able to continue supporting each other, that would really add value. And that's how the Association of Countrywide Innovation Hub was born. But also we are definitely members of the ASEC, as the ASEC, and we really participated in most of the program. Personally, as Elder Hub, we work together, and we are even implementing a project with ASEC. So yeah. And coming to talk about I know Lawi, you've talked about M-Pesa and how it really has created a major driving force and change in Kenya. I feel that in the ecosystem, if we didn't have the financial flow or a means for, fintech has really contributed. That's kind of the state of, Kenya, financial technology has been a major force driving change in Kenya with, mobile platforms, revolutionizing financial access, improving financial inclusion, and in turn serving as a catalyst for innovation in other sectors, such as e-commerce, agriculture, healthcare, education, and all that. And with that, digital platforms are expanding in Kenya. Many Kenyans are engaging in digitally enabled work, like online work, taxi driving, and from where I sit, I think not all the towns, but most of the major towns like Eldoret, Nakuru, they have their own Uber-like platform, just bringing together taxi drivers and all that. So that's also something which is happening in Kenya, buying and selling and others. E-commerce really has been has really been growing in Kenya. All this definitely would not have been possible without financial flow, which I think, like Lawi mentioned, it's because of M-Pesa. And if you know that, M-Pesa at some point, people were fighting it. You remember Kenya Bankers Association was strongly against it. Kenyan government created an enabling environment for M-Pesa and other fintech solutions to thrive in Kenya. So Kenyan government government has really played a key role in terms of the ecosystem. I don't know if it's enough, but government has created and proposed some policies to create an enabling environment for digital innovation and new technologies. And I think even we compare to other African countries, we kind of ahead of things in terms of, digital innovation and all that. And I know you all know the starter bill, the data bill, and all the others. But really my point is, we have all these many policies that we've created in Kenya. And personally, I've attended so many policy creation forums in Kenya. To an extent, sometimes I feel, it's kind of a waste of my time, because these policies are not really implemented. If these policies were to be implemented in Kenya, for example, I don't know, maybe we will be far, we will be like China. And you remember the China story that, in 1960s, I think China was a developing country. And you can imagine how they've been able to develop from 1990s to 2010s. And currently they are the leading digital economy in the world, #1 in the world, for example. So I feel that if we, as a country, would have, been able to implement these policies, definitely will be far. Yeah, we will be one of those countries like Singapore and the others. So I think some of the challenges is industry interference, some of the resources. We don't have enough resources, and I think also we all know about the discrepancy, the biasness in terms of funding and all that, poor enforcement, lack of clear roles. So to conclude, I think technology with the support of strong policies can be able to see regional economic growth in digital. Yeah. And of course, e-commerce, for me, I have a thing for e-commerce, and I feel that, e-commerce platforms can enable access to local and global markets, and the economic growth of East Africa, for example, all this will ensure regional balance. And just, you can imagine, I've been imagining that, if I can, I can sell my products and be able to deliver it to Tanzania, for example, within a day, for example, or maybe deliver it to Rwanda within a day, or the other countries. I feel that, there is more that we can do as ESOs and, us who are creating enabling environment. We need to see the gaps and catalyze those conversations around that. And I think this is a starting point. Yeah, so thank you, and back to you. I think Anne or Sheila. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Magdalene and Anne, for that extensive information about the Kenyan ecosystem, and thank you for sharing the journey as well. We will go to the next speaker. Charles, maybe you can also just give us the context of, what's happening in Rwanda, how has it been, and for everyone to just understand.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you so much. Happy to first, after listening to the ecosystem in Kenya, which has been in place for some good years, but glad that I'm here on this platform. The ecosystem, startup ecosystem really in Rwanda started way back in 2010 with K-Lab, as a private sector coming up with a K-Lab, and where it's a knowledge hub where everyone could go with a machine. It was really interesting to see young people coming up trying to replicate the Facebook that already we have, trying to make them their own, you know, back there. But trying to understand the innovation space, because if the space was really for free, you go and sit there with the internet and do some work. So that's how really started. Now, when I say 2010 and 2012, some already big ecosystem that are our neighbor here in Kenya might be feel like, you know, but that's when really started. And afterwards, really, Fab Lab also extended this branch of MIT, extended to Rwanda in the same building where Caleb was. And so fabrication, the SolidWorks, all that, basically the manufacturer also started, in terms of the hardware development companies, they also started seeing a space where they can really go and think and be creative and come up with innovative companies. Afterwards, of course, that is in 2017 there, we had started the government of Rwanda putting up new policies that are really supporting the innovators. I remember when you come to Rwanda and I want to register business, it's really quick, like in 24 hours you're ready, in 6 hours. It started by 24 and now it's just 6 hours. You can really register your business quickly in RDB, and you can actually register before you come in Rwanda online. And different policies that have really been put in place, and we have seen many actually institutions, the NGOs, and really getting interested in this space and starting supporting different programs that are supporting social entrepreneurs, enterprises, to say. But in 2018, we have seen different hubs really coming up, setting up in Rwanda, and other hubs really extending to Rwandan ecosystem. Where also 250 startup, the one that are institution that are really heading now, we came in place in 2017 and 2018. That's when really we launched it. And our main gap was like, you know, you have Caleb and Fab Lab. So once you've done that step, which is more on an ideation stage, really we had no one that really take those people on the next stage. So 250 came in place. And of course, the Vesavedo also came in place, extending from other countries. And we have seen different funds, the Gorillas, starting supporting pitching on Transform Africa events that have been happening there. And we have seen more people really getting interested. But more so, what was really interesting was the government's reaction towards the innovators. Whereby it's really, they put also the re-ministry, changing the ministry from the Ministry of Youth and the ICT into the Ministry of Innovation and ICT. I mean, it was really communicating, you know, that really innovation is taking a bigger space, and it opened up people's eye to come in this innovation space. And as of now, as we speak, in Rwanda, we have more than 50 e-commerce platforms, but also that came as a result of COVID, because before COVID we had 8, but as of now we have seen more companies coming up, and you know, fintech space, as Rwanda is really aiming at becoming the cashless economy and really pushing it to happen, because when you look at the incentives put on telecom companies, or look at the incentives that are put on different banks, and you know, in COVID, actually, there was a free transaction on mobile money on that, and it was really cool on that case. But after COVID, really, the lockdown, they started, I mean, they introduced new, a little bit, they reduced the fee, and it's now really, I don't know when I last touched money physically because of that, because it's really easier in paying. So if fintech really is going higher, and I have seen many innovators that I really not be able to mention as of now, maybe next time. But yeah, that's more of the ecosystem. But now, as 250 startup, after visiting Israel, visiting Kenya, and hearing about the Ghana Association of Hubs, really creating as of now, creating the association of hubs as of now, because now we have more than 11 hubs in Rwanda, both tech hubs and other hubs, both in fabrication but also in innovation space. Now, so we're really learning from those that are ecosystems that are mature, because when you look at it, the hubs that I'm talking about, we're just really trying to create it and really make sure that we can work, as a team at the end of the day, and influence the policymakers and support innovators collectively, than before. So yeah, that's sum up of how the ecosystem really is happening as of now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. I think I'll go to Pray God, if you can hear me, to just give us the context of what's happening in Tanzania.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, thank you. As I introduce myself, I work with Tanzania Startup Association, which is an umbrella membership-based organization trying to bring together the stakeholders of the startup ecosystem and to advocate for policies and a conducive environment where startups can start, grow, and scale. So why TSA? Why do we exist? TSA exists on a demand drive that comes from the challenges that are facing the Tanzania startup ecosystem as of recent. In Tanzania, first of all, Tanzania comes from a socialism background. So a lot of things are highly regulated or were highly regulated. And even if they have changed, they didn't change to flexibility where tech companies can just grow, start and scale as fast as it should be. And if you look at the business environment here, a lot of those big businesses are traditional businesses that focus on, are owned by mostly individuals or families. And so you would realize that the biggest businesses in Tanzania don't come from tech or don't take aspect technology influence. So I can tell you a little bit of the climate of the Tanzania. If I was to say startup ecosystem in Tanzania, it's in the initial stage of growing. For example, in the past years, we have only 2 hubs or 60 hubs now that are over the country. Of those, they're actually many. 60 hubs are actually many. The impact is very small because we don't have the enabling environment for business to scale, even to go to a point where you see a business, because startups should have a potential to grow fast, and that's actually understanding growth. But when you come to now, you need to grow. For example, you need to more capital. You've gone from stage A to stage B, you probably to attract money. The financial sector is highly in the industry.
Hey, God. Sorry to stop you. I don't know if it's just from my end, but your audio is breaking. So maybe we can switch. Maybe you can switch off your video and we try to see if we can hear you, because there's also a comment. Yeah, we cannot. Your audio keeps breaking.
How about now?
Yeah, now we can hear you better. Thank you.
What about now?
Now we can hear you better. Oh, I think he dropped off. Yeah, I think he dropped off. I think we'll come back to him once he joins again. So I'll give it to Awil to just give us the to talk to us about the Somali ecosystem.
Hello. Thank you again. Oh, Prego is back.
Oh, I think Prego is back.
Yeah.
Yes. Please speak. We see if we can hear you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sheila is breaking. Maybe I can change my internet.
No, but now we can hear you. When you said you, when the last statement, we could hear you. Can you hear me?
So what's the, yeah, I can hear you. I'm speaking about the fintech industry in Tanzania in comparison to what's happening across Africa. Can I go on?
Yes, go on. Now we can hear you. Pray God. Yeah, I think we lost him again. Yeah, maybe I will. You can carry on. I'll let him know that we can't hear him, and then I think we'll come back to him. Just carry on, I will.
So thank you very much, Sheila, for inviting me. I am honored to represent and I can share with you the Somalia tech ecosystem. So one word about like the Somalia tech ecosystem, or anyone who actually interested in actually coming in, like it's still very young, very young. So when I say young, we're talking about like we have less than 5 innovation hubs. Some of them actually like are more like projects, not actually like an actual company that is like standing on its own. So the one that I was leading, that I was actually like heading as the CEO, was like IRS Hub, and it was I co-founded with 2 other gentlemen in 2016, and we launched it in 2017. So the idea was not actually even like people were not ready to actually even like people didn't even understand. So it was like if I compare it with like Kenya, it was like 2010s when iHub was actually starting. So it was like like more of like like a co-working space. So you have to tell people about like co-working space, innovation hubs. Like so, it's like you will meet someone will go to your website, read about us and everything. But still, when you meet them, they will still ask you, what do you guys do? So that was like like as early as 2016, 2017. But now it looks like people have actually understood what actually innovation hubs do, what business incubators do, accelerators, startups, the tech ecosystem and all that. So to actually like really promote the idea of like innovation hubs, like the tech ecosystem, we did like something we call like the Mogadishu Tech Summit that we did in 2017, 2018 and 2019. We couldn't do it in 2020 because of the pandemic. We invited like even people across also like Africa, and some I came as far as like like even Europe and the USA to actually be like speakers. So we had like a 3-day event. We brought more than 5,000 people together. When I talk about like like let's say if I roll back and like talk about the tech ecosystem right now, it's like it's picking up. People actually understanding what tech hubs actually do and all that. But unfortunately, like most of the tech hubs that are actually currently on and running and actually doing the things they're actually doing mostly are like privately funded. It's actually owned by individuals, or some of them are actually a flagship projects of some very big organization. So it's like like it's not something that can actually work on its own and actually come with its own policy and all that. They have to actually work under the policy of like the bigger organization that's actually funding them. The ones that are independent, who that are actually private, are still trying to actually break even and trying to actually like like really sell the service that actually like they're selling. And keeping in mind that Somalia, especially like Mogadishu, when it comes to the security, infrastructure, and all that, it's like all of them actually coming up right now. So there have been an interest of like like people trying to actually come up with the startups. Of course, like like when the normal SME and brick and mortar businesses are like different from like startups. So but since 2017, since we established up to now, there have been a lot of startups that are actually coming up. Some of them actually dying, of course, as you know, with startups. But they and then from 2017 to 2020, we got also like some attention from like international media, local media, the local and humanitarian agencies, the likes of UNICEF and USAID and the others, the government, and they have actually seen what we are doing. So we had to actually show them value, so that they can actually chip in and like work with us. Because first they were thinking, so like these guys, like they didn't understand what you're doing. We have done a lot of like interactions with them. We had like meetings with them. We even did like even pitching to them, giving them like numbers and like showing them what kind of impact you can actually have on the tech ecosystem, creation of jobs, and like creating like like a adding value into the economy. But after some time, some of the organizations took chance with us. They funded some of our programs, some of our activities, and like they got very good results. And after that, we started getting like like a lot of attention. And from all the other organizations that are working with those organizations, we have been mentioned in like very big meetings of the work that we actually do in Mogadishu and the rest of Somalia. But there has been also like I think some Anne actually mentioned, the lady that was ahead of me mentioned, one of the previous speakers actually mentioned, was like there's like like a lot of competition coming up right now. So everybody is actually trying to actually come up, set up an innovation hub. People have actually understood what actually takes to set up an innovation hub. So it's like like you look for a building, like open space, you hire staff, like give yourself like something hub, and you get operational like like as fast as like like in a month or two, because like they have laid down like like setting up an innovation hub or a tech hub or business incubator, whatever call it. Setting it up is actually very easy. It's like like people have actually been doing this thing for the last, I think, maybe 20 years, maybe the last 15-20 years in East Africa. So someone can actually set up, maybe if anyone is actually listening, the participants, if you want to set up like like an innovation hub, get in touch with me. I can actually help you with that. It's like very easy to actually do it. But the idea is like like running it, like like building that community, setting up like the services, like like really pushing, like like giving it like value, because like you like the like if you don't actually like deliver the services as an innovation hub or a business incubator, you just become a landlord. Like you have a co-working space, people will be coming in, maybe they'll do a pitching day maybe once in a week or whatever. So it's like like they will not get actually the value. So but if you hire the right people, you'll be able to actually like get the right impact in the community where you're running it, whether it's like like a town, a city, a village, wherever you are. Coming back to my journey, or like like the trends and like like the updates, is like since our inception in 2017, there has been a lot of change also like in also like like when it comes to like doing business in Somalia. Somalia has been ranked like I think one of the poorest when it comes to like registering or like starting a business. You pay as much as like $500 to actually start a business, but now the government, 500 just like for it's like around 50,000 shillings to just like start like like to get the registration certificate, not startup capital, just getting like like a limited company. So you have to pay as much as like 50,000 shillings. That's like a fee that you have to actually give it to. So let's say for the lawyer, you have to maybe another 10,000 shillings, and then you have to pay extra money to actually do all the paperwork and all that. So it's really very hard to actually start a business in Somalia. But the Ministry of Commerce has been like really doing well, and they have actually like cut down to all the way to 300. They categorize, they break down all the businesses like different categories. So some of them you pay 35,000 shillings, some of them 10,000 shillings, some of them 5K, some of them you just need like a permit to actually start. With that said, also like like the government also like introduced like an SME policy that has actually been already approved. There's also like like IB and trademark has already they get started with that. Then also like the federal government of Somalia right now in Mogadishu has like an investment promotion parastatal, or an organization that's that comes under the Ministry of Planning and Investment. And also like the business registration process has been automated. They haven't launched the online platform yet, like the e-citizen for Kenya, but they are in the process of actually like launching it maybe in a month or two, depending on like like how fast they actually finish it. But so that will actually make the business the process of actually registering a business very fast. And also like also of course you can actually decide where your business will be located, and like like all the details. So it will be much faster to actually start a business in Somalia, probably maybe in the next 6 months or so, if the bills that are currently in the parliament, and also like this online business registration portal is actually launched. One of the like like something that really, and I'm sure like like this can actually be shared with like like the same can actually be said maybe in other tech ecosystem, was this well, and maybe that question will be asked later, but like one thing that is actually really standing on the neck of like the Somalia tech ecosystem to actually like like really sprout and like like really grow big one we shared with almost like in every other East African nation, that's like like funding or like investments. But one thing that actually like really crippling or maybe even making it for like a lot of actually startups to actually come out of Somalia, whether it's like Mogadishu or Kismayo or like Hargeisa, whatever it is, it's the tech talent. So like let's say whenever you like when you want to start a startup, you need like the tech talent. Like you need engineers, you need like innovation managers, you need like like software engineers, you need like blockchain AI guys and all that. So it's like that's actually missing. And there's also like very few coding school or coding academies that are actually like located in Somalia right now. So I think that will be like the next thing, or whoever is actually trying to like jump into the market will be able to actually like take advantage of and setting out like coding school. I've tried it before. I'm still in the process. I'm actually looking for people that I can actually work with. But I think that is where like like a very big chunk of like like the business will actually go to. And once like you start turning like a proper like pipeline for like like engineers, like we're talking about tech talent, and then on this side you have like like the innovation hubs are like like graduating like entrepreneurs or business people. With that combination can actually give you like really very talent, like like it will give you like like a very good recipe of like like a growing tech ecosystem. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Sheila, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
She's on mute.
Sheila?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's my internet. I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're okay.
can hear you.
Okay.
Because I'm just like, what? Everyone has frozen. So sorry. I think we will go to David, who's here from Burundi. I hope you can hear us, and then we'll come back to Pray God.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you, David.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I think I was not there.
Yes.
My name is Abia David, and I'm from Burundi. I'm the CEO of a hub called the Buja Hub.
I don't know if it's just from my part. David, you're muted. We can't hear you anymore. Okay. Yes, now we can. Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah, and about what's happening in Burundi so far. Buja Hub has come in as one of the platforms, of course, the hub, which has been, I think, the first hub in Burundi. I was hearing my colleague from Somalia, and I think the ecosystem in Burundi is quite a bit the same. We have, I think, we only have 2 hubs and 1 incubator, and the incubator has been very. And in those hubs, there's only 2 hubs which are really focused on tech, so which makes the ecosystem, of course, very slow. Burundi does not have a lot of tech innovation and stuff in the outer space, which means the East Africa. We've not really had something that has come out as innovation from Burundi, and that gives us a lot of challenge also, and really puts us under pressure to really work hard to see that we can also join the ecosystem and maybe flow in the same speed. And that is why Buja Hub was created, of course, after after working with Google Digital Skills for Africa. That was one of the past programs that really brought up the idea of tech, of innovation in Burundi. And I was leading that program in Burundi and DRC. And when we did that program in Burundi, we realized there's a lot of potential, of course, in young people. And what we wanted to do now from that step was to be able to promote now this innovation and set up a tech space. That's why the Buja Hub came in, and we came in since 2019, August 2019. So we're still a young hub also in Burundi. And from 2019, we've been able to run a good number of trainings and incubation of digital innovators. We've had actually a good success story of a business that was selected among the 3 most innovative businesses in Africa by the World Bank. And so with that, we've continued to do that since 2019. We've also tried to continue to promote the tech innovation in Burundi through the Digital Entrepreneurship Summit that we organize every year since 2018, 2019. It didn't happen in 2020, of course, because of the COVID-19. And we've summit, we've been able to pull in people from Nairobi, from across East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, and we've also had people from Europe that have come in also to kind of help us to build that ecosystem. And those are some of the things that we've achieved so far. We've created programs in secondary school, we've created programs in universities, and we've created on-site programs in the hub. And yeah, that's what we're really trying to do in trying to push for the tech innovation in Burundi, the ecosystem, the government. We're working in partnership, of course, with the government, through the Ministry of ICT, and we're also working with the Agency of Investment Promotion, which is really facilitating a business creation. I think Burundi also has a very, very fast process of registering a business. And for in Burundi to register a business, I think it takes 12 hours maximum. So which means it's 1 day process, which means you can open a business in 1 day. And through a partnership with the Agency of Investment Promotions, the business that are created through the Buja Hub have a kind of bonus or kind of support system that helps them to be able to have their business registered in less than 3 hours. So that has really facilitated a lot of entrepreneurs passing through the hub to be able to create their businesses and have all the legal documents in less than 3 hours. We've also tried to foster for policies, of course, in the Ministry of Education and ICT, for us to see how tech spaces, how innovation can be promoted. I really liked the comment of the colleague from Rwanda who said that the ministry was changed to the Ministry of Innovation, and that really gives a heads up to young people and to everyone seeing that. And those are some of the things that we're pushing for with the Ministry of Education and with the Ministry of ICT, to see that we can really prioritize innovation and technology, because those are sectors that have really been neglected in Burundi, where we have a percentage of the people who are connected in Burundi are less than, I think, 11%. I think it's 11% of the Burundian population that is connected to the internet actively, and that creates the whole scenario for the challenges that we face. We don't have policies on e-commerce, which have also paralyzed e-commerce. The fintech technology with the network operators is still very low, which means the interface for online payment is still a challenge to get it from the network operators. We have a lot of problems with tax, and especially on how they pay for online platforms. There's what you call forfait, which means they just strike you with taxes to pay at the end of the year, which you don't have because it's things they don't understand on e-commerce and how you can be able to do the taxations, and a lot of other policies of user protection and security, of course, that also comes in. And so there is a lot of challenges on the Burundian tech ecosystem. But I think the Buja Hub coming up has really opened up eyes of a lot of partners in Burundi. And with the work that we're trying to do, of course, the challenges of support of tech hubs in Burundi. The Buja Hub is privately owned, and it being privately owned, it means it's running by our own resources, which means we up to now we still don't have partners that they're really trying to push us in. We're making good progress with the World Bank. We're making good progress with IFC. We're making a bit of progress with other partners, of course, trying to push in and see how we can get support in that area so that we can be able to increase our impact and be able to execute more projects across the country, of course, in promoting tech innovation. And our strength is Burundi has, I think internet is cheap, maybe because it's less people who are connected, and it being cheap, it's accessible, and we have the fiber optic that is connected to at least 85% of the country has access to 2G network, which makes it, of course, part of the strengths that we have. Our population is young, which also becomes a very good strength. But what we're trying to build is, of course, build networks of other hubs. We've joined a couple of other platforms like Afrikinov. We've joined platforms like AfriLabs. We're also in progress with AfriLabs. We're pushing with other platforms, of course, and other hubs across Africa that are trying to build up on networks of hubs and everything. And I believe that, of course, with this kind of programs, with this kind of exchanges, it will really help us as a hub in Burundi to be able to move forward and to try to see how best we can impact the tech space in Burundi. And I think, in avoiding to go back on the same things, I think I can leave it by there. And in case there are any questions, maybe they'll orient me to what I can say.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for participating in this. I know we don't get a lot of forums where we get to interact with Burundi, which is quite unfortunate, but I believe this is, I think, a good starting point for a more collaborative ecosystem that brings all the East African countries together, and especially the players in the ecosystem. So I'll go back to Pregod. I hope we can hear him now. And guys, don't mind, I think we'll take a bit of time in this setting context for the different countries, so that for the other 3 questions that we're going to tackle, will be short and quick, because we've already tackled most of these things already in the introduction. So Pregod, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me, Sheila?
Yes, now we can finally hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I had provided a background on Tanzania being a socialist, so the open economy is a little bit, they provide evidence by talking about the fintech, and I was saying that you see a lot of booming in the fintech industry across Africa, but you don't see that in Tanzania. There are less or no at all fintech companies that boom from Tanzania as compared to other countries like Kenya and the rest. So that's because it's not because there are no fintech companies in Tanzania that are doing good. There are fintech companies in other areas also, but the challenge is, if I could summarize this, is that the ecosystem is in its initial stage is growing, but now when it comes to scaling, the policies and legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks really restrict scaling of the startups and the ecosystem in general. So, but we've had a few success stories. For example, last year, a company called Recopages here exited at $25 million, which is a lot for Tanzania. And we've had a few more that were not announced, but they're just very few as compared to the startup companies that are starting. For example, if you look at the startups that are starting every year, people who start startups every year, the startups are actually very, very many. But if you come back a year later or 2 years later, they do not exist. You find that the same people with another startups, or they've started something new, or they didn't start, they just quit and went for corporate jobs, or someone else has started something new. So you realize that there's a drive, there's a passion for the entrepreneurs, and the politics of starting something is really good, but when it comes to now that you need to grow and scale, the environment doesn't really support. And on the challenges, a lot of these challenges, for example, as I was trying to say on the financing area, the financing sector is highly restricted in Tanzania. So that comes to another areas in the legal and policies that govern things that the government or the government agencies think that they are sensitive. So those things are highly restricted for, and when it comes to taxation, the environment does not support startups to actually thrive, because whether you're a startup or not, you're treated as a corporate. And now that's the area where TSA is trying to address. We started the Startup Bill or Startup Act efforts early this year, and we are trying to push it to see if we can have an enabling environment for startups, but also an enabling environment for those service providers who provide different services to the startups. So, and the key area that we see is a major problem is policies and also legal frameworks, but also the regulatory frameworks. There's so many laws and regulations that really need startups to do something that they cannot afford to do. And for example, the taxes and the government agencies that a startup has to deal with are just so many. You waste a lot of hours moving around to just comply, and then compliance becomes an issue. So a lot of startups also do not operate formally. They just go into the informal sector, and or half formal, half informal. So that it doesn't really push for growth, and that's a problem. But we are trying and hoping that the Startup Act will address that and provide a shield where startups can feel comfortable and grow. And if I would say something about synergy, is comparing to the East African market, other countries, I think Tanzania has a very big population, which is potential. I see a lot of Kenyan startups coming to Tanzania to establish their business, and I think they perform really well because they do not live. So as much as they have the capital and probably the human resources, then they perform well. So the market here is big, whether in the agricultural sector or just tapping the middle class or anything. The market is really big. So I think as the East Africa startup ecosystem, what we can try to do while Tanzania is building on having the enabling environment for startups to grow, we can somehow try to tap the Tanzania market by having infrastructure speed, those that are physical and non-physical infrastructures that can allow Tanzanian startups to tap the Kenyan market, and Kenyan startups to tap Tanzanian markets with easy, so as to grow and attract, because when they grow, it brings it alarms the world that something is happening in East Africa. So it's easier for Tanzania and other countries like Burundi to ride along the wave of what's happening maybe in Kenya or in Tanzania, because we are in the same geography. So that's the signage that I see and the state that I see in Tanzania. But I wouldn't like to be so negative about the ecosystem in Tanzania, because it's actually growing, just that we need to pull some levers so that we can scale. Thank you. I was trying to be fast before my internet starts to break. Sheila.
Your internet behaved well this time. Thank you. And thank you for that information as well about Tanzania. We really appreciate that. So I think for the next round, for the next round, I think we will discuss the regulatory environment in each of this country. And because of time, I will ask us to be a bit brief. Just let us know, how is the regulation in terms of supporting entrepreneurs, especially startups and SME in your country? And is there any development that is happening there? What do you see the government is doing to enable entrepreneurs to thrive? Or are they putting in place legislative frameworks to be able to support entrepreneurs on there's nothing at all? And if there's nothing, what do you think needs to happen? So briefly, I think I will start with Kenya. This time, I think, I hope Magdalene is still here. Yes, Magdalene, just briefly tell us what is happening in the Kenyan ecosystem, regulatory-wise, in supporting startups and SMEs.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Currently in Kenya, I think we have different startup bills. We have startup bills that have been proposed, and I think the Kenyan the legislation, the senator has been pushing for the startup bill in Kenya, and it's the government enacted a Startup Act, that's 2020, that has created a number of incentives for startups, as well as protection for intellectual property, and it provides a framework for the development of innovative entrepreneurship, and the establishment of incubation hubs, and for building a network of local and foreign investors. So that's currently something which is happening in Kenya, and we've been discussing about ways in which we can support the government to better support the startups and to better create an enabling environment, an enabling environment for digital innovation and new technologies in Kenya. And mainly is I think the Kenyan we all want to make, of course, Kenya a leader in the digital economy, and it would also be really nice to have as the East African community, because East Africa community brings in a common market, large access like we've already had, and so that's will eventually will definitely eventually flow to other countries. So that's it from my side. Back to you, Sheila.
Thank you. Awil? The regulatory environment in Somalia in terms of supporting entrepreneurs and startups or SMEs.
Hi. Thank you very much. I think I mentioned it earlier. So the federal parliament, which is actually the biggest or the highest authority in the government, the Somali federal government have been trying really very hard to pass or make business doing business in Somalia very easy. Coming up within the ranks and trying to do actually business, because right now let's say if you're in Mogadishu, where the federal government sits, there's a regional administration, and then there's also the federal government. So sometimes you may actually find yourself you have to get a license from the federal government level, And then now let's say if you go to another federal member state, they will still ask you to like, get some kind of a permit, or like, you have to actually register yourself. I think like I can actually compare it with like Kenya, where like, like you're doing business, let's say in like, you get one from from the ministry, and then now let's say you want to do like business in Yandarua, and then now like the Yandarua country wants you to do like, like give you like, some kind of a work permit actually for you to actually do business there. So we have like the SME policy that has actually been also like, it's currently in implementation. There's also like the IB and trademark, still in currently also in the parliament. The government actually set up the investment promotion office, I think so. Yeah, I think that will be it. And there's also like, like making the registration of business online, which hasn't been activated yet, but that's actually where they're actually going to. So when it comes to like, like Somalia, I would say is like, really even actually doing a business of like, like a brick and mortar. Let's say if you want to come and set up like, like a solar business here, you will still have difficulties actually like, setting up and all that. But one, I think, advantage that Somalia has right now is like, like, well, other countries like, Tanzania, let's say Kenya, Uganda and all that, maybe they have like very stiff let's say regulations on certain things. Here those rules have not been set up right now, so it's very easy to actually like experiment and do some of these things. You won't actually be good. So let me like give you like, like a very something that almost all of you will actually love, everybody who's actually listening, is the biggest telco, which is like Hormuz. They have like, like a mobile wallet, or let's say similar to like M-Pesa. So if you're sending money from one person to another person, let's say $100 to me, there's a zero transaction fee. Let's say I am actually paying for, let's say I go to a hotel, or let's say I go to a business, and let's say I want to actually pay to a merchant, there's also like zero transaction. So we're talking about a zero transaction fee mobile money. That's actually the biggest. So that's actually like, something that actually really excites. But this one problem is like, like it's not being regulated. So the business actually decides who is going to use their API, like, like that kind of a thing. So it's like, like they're not being regulated. Like, like it's like, like how M-Pesa was like, maybe I think 5 years ago, you couldn't actually access the API directly. So, but here it's like, you have to actually go through like, like several processes, and like a panel within the telco will actually decide if they will actually let you use their like gateway, their SMS gateway, their like their payment API and all that. Yeah. So I think that actually makes like a little bit of like it's like, like pro and con. Like, it's like, like yeah, it's actually a good thing, but at the same time also like, like it restricts a lot of people. Is it actually advisable to actually come and do business in Somalia? Yes, it's actually like a very it's like, like it's a growing economy. So it's like even coming in right now will actually make a lot of sense, because like you'll find yourself like, maybe you'll be the first person. That's what I'm saying. Like, like I was actually one of the first person to actually set up like a tech hub, and that was like actually 2017. It's like, it's a brand new concept. So it's like, like if you have like very like, like bright idea, like, like do some research in Somalia, and then you'll be able to actually really like get a very good like, like a very good market fit. If you actually find like a market fit, it's like, like a place where you can actually get like a lot of people actually paying for it. A lot of people, a lot of Somali people actually coming back from the diaspora and pumping a lot of money also like into the economy, both as also like, as a remittance, and also at the same time as an investment. In terms of the regulation, I would say like, like there's a the soft side, which is like where you say like, like it's good, where like, like there's not a lot of restrictions. So, like the parliament, or like, there's not a lot of laws that have been set up to restrict people from doing things. But at the same time, while those restrictions are not there, or those like, like tight rules around like, like innovation, and like, like let's say when it comes to like solar energy, like, like mining and all that are not there, but the government can still like actually stop you, or you cannot actually do some of those businesses because of the environment, security wise, and also like because of like, it may be very expensive to actually set up, like, like doing partnership with someone from outside that actually tell you know what, I may not be able to actually do business in Somalia because of a policy here and a policy there. Like, like I remember in 2017, 18 there, we got in touch with like HIVOS, but like they had like a program that they actually launched, like they had like some funds, an impact fund, why not apply? And they told us like, we're not like, like we cannot actually do business with someone who's actually operating in Somalia. So also like, like, something that it really hinders the growth of like, like organizations that are actually supporting startups. And also at the same time, like, like the flow of funds from actually outside Somalia is actually very restricted. So I'm really looking forward to like, like a moment at time when Somalia will be like at par with like, like the rest of like East African countries, and people can actually like, like come to Somalia and like, do business and do collaborations and like, do a lot of other awesome things that's happening within the tech ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Awil. And I actually would echo what you're saying. I've worked with some startups from Somalia, and I can tell you for sure the market, I think the purchasing power of the market there is quite high. And there's also an appetite for, I think, a lot of innovation and integration into the, first into the global ecosystem, because they have a huge diaspora community that wants to invest back. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who are setting up businesses to tap into that community, but also a lot of them are coming back into the country to set up. So there are also good avenues for collaboration in people who want to explore new markets. So I definitely echo what you're saying. I think we will go to David to just give us, briefly about the environment, the policy environment or regulatory environment for Burundi. I think you mentioned a bit of it, but I think just to give us specifically on that in supporting businesses, how is that?
Thank you again, Sheila, for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So about the government support for the startup.
Okay, now we've lost you. I think we lost him. Yeah, I think, no, he's still here.
Okay, I'm saying about the government support to the startup ecosystem in Burundi. I think I had mentioned it earlier, but I'll just maybe try to be focus myself on that. We have an agency called the Agency of Investment Promotion, which is under the Ministry of Commerce. And that is something that was set up, I think, in 2015, around 2012. Around 2012. That was, of course, set up to facilitate.
We lost you, David.
Yeah, that was set up, the Agency of Investment Promotion. That was in 2012 in order to promote startup and business creation in Burundi. And that has really been able to push business creation in Burundi, of course, with a fee of payment that is less than $10, to start a business in Burundi in less than 12 hours, which makes it a bit, of course, easy to start a business in Burundi. And what the government is doing to support the startup ecosystem, of course, is through such policies of facilitating business creation and companies.
You're muted. I don't know what happened.
Okay, but I hope you can. I'm back.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Perfect. Yes. So which means what the government is also doing, right now through a partnership with the Agency of Investment Promotion, we're trying to see how we can do incubation for startup businesses, of course, many of which are owned by young people, so that we can be able to integrate the tech aspect of it in all the businesses that are coming, and trying to see how also the startup ecosystem integrate technology in their day-to-day activities. So other things that are working, of course, is on tech promotion, which is the World Bank program. There's a World Bank program coming in that is aiming to equip the government with a lot of digital transformation platforms, which goes into fintech, which goes into supporting digital skills, which goes into supporting e-commerce platforms, which goes into supporting a lot of areas in the tech sector, and some.
Oh, I think we lost.
And
okay, you're back.
Hello. Yeah, and
yeah, we can hear you.
most of. Yeah, and so some of these programs are run by the government, of course, in trying to digitalize the public sectors, which then will make it easy for the private sectors coming in the tech sector to be able to really succeed. So the government of Burundi, of course, is open to innovation. We really try best, and policies are in place to support startups, and especially to support entrepreneurs, and the ecosystem is really building up, and taxation apart from the online platforms, taxation for other startups. Of course, there's what they have of social capital. So once you have your social capital mentioned, the government also tries to facilitate in terms of small and medium enterprises. In terms of taxations, they have some exonerations, some bonuses that they're given, and this has really facilitated entrepreneurship. And the ecosystem of starting up a business in Burundi is really fast, it's really easy, and it's really in a very short time. But now the challenges come. Of course, these are the real challenges that we face every day, the challenges of entrepreneurs to be able to scale up their businesses to the next level. And those are personal business issues. But for the policies, we have one of the best policies in starting a business in Burundi. And I think some of the policies that we need, it's only policies in tech. Mm-hmm. And this is a matter of regular discussion. We're really having a lot of interaction and discussions with the government and other partner organizations, and us to be able to see how best we can have policies that support the tech innovation and e-commerce in Burundi. I think in brief, that's all that I can say for now.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I think we'll go to Pray God. If you can give us I think you had mentioned, then we'll come to Charles. Just briefly tell us the regulatory environment, if government has put anything in place, or there's any plans to support startups and entrepreneurs in Tanzania. And then after Pray God, we'll go to Charles. If we can be a bit brief and avoid repeating what we had already said, I think it would be good, so that we get to discuss at least one or two more things, especially on collaboration. So Pray God, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Phil. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, the government is very open. Actually, as I mentioned before, the entrepreneurship sector, especially for startups, has been highly regulated because of the background and everything that I mentioned. I know you want me to be very brief, but I would like to give just a little bit context. In Tanzania, the government provides financing for youth and women through municipal councils. And it provides a lot of money, like a few $1 million every year. But for you to be eligible to access that financing, you need to be in a group of 10 people. Like, you have a business idea, but you need to be 10. And now, unfortunately, startups, there are no startups run by 10 people, actually, just 2 or 3 people when they're starting, or even one person when they're starting. So when you tell the government that the small businesses are struggling, and especially the startups, they tell you, but we're providing financing like 20 billion shillings every year. What are you saying? What you're saying is definitely contrary to what we do. We provide financing, but we tell them that those are typical SMEs and most likely have different needs when it comes to the businesses in the innovation sector, because their business models, operations are quite different. So because of that, there has been some challenges, like I mentioned. For example, some people who are doing crowdfunding were jailed because they source money from the public and it's illegal. But when you come to other ecosystems, that's called the crowdfunding, and it's very widely used to scale businesses. But in Tanzania, it's fraud, it's illegal. So the government called a meeting and we went there. We told them that we need to set aside like some sort of what do they call it? A place where you can iterate your ideas. There's a name for it. Just left my mind, but what something box? I've forgotten. But and then they were open. What?
Are you talking about a
you were broke? You're breaking, but I think that's it.
A regulatory sandbox?
Yeah, a sandbox. Thank you. Sandbox where we can iterate ideas, like an entrepreneur can have a protection for trying the idea. So they've been really open to that, and plus the startup act that we are pushing, they've been really open. And this is the green side of all the challenges that the ecosystem is facing. And we as TSA and other partners, we're trying to address every challenge from policy and regulatory point of view, because these are the ones that actually hinder actual growth. Because if it's financing, someone can access financing from somewhere, anywhere outside the country, inside the country. But when it comes to a point where the policies are limiting the transactions and everything, then that's where we see that the big problem is. And we are so glad that the government is open. And like I mentioned, we are in the process of setting the sandboxes, and the act is going through just really fine. And we are positive that in the next 1-2 years we will have an ecosystem where the startups can start grow and scale like other countries where we see a lot of booming. Thank you.
Thank you, Prego. Charles?
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to hear from different policies that are really coming up in different countries, which are really neighbors. So meaning cross borders, working with entrepreneurs in terms of scaling, it's going to be easier as we move forward. So quickly in Rwanda, we have many policies, but I'll just pick the few that are really relevant today. One is easy in doing business in Rwanda. It's easy now than before, whereby we have institutions that are really basically focused on that, like RDB. Like if you are an investor, if you are like coming up with a company and in Rwanda, scaling up in Rwanda, it's easier than before, because we have a separate office for that. You don't need to run in 2 different offices of government institution, bureaucracy, and no. We have a specific institution, which is RDB, that really runs that. As I mentioned, the registering the business also connect to that. It became easier than before. Not forgetting the new SMEs are exempted from the trade license for the first 2 years, which is really easier on also that. But there's an important point that entrepreneurship development policy in 2020 with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which came up with a different action to address the constraints that are really there that are facing, and I'll just get two of them. The one was to improve access to skills and know-how for existing and potential entrepreneurs to effectively start, but also manage their business. As you know, many innovators that have been coming up in this space, these are fresh graduates from different universities, and in terms of skills, they're lacking. So there's a policy for that, but also I'll pick the last one, which is promoting the culture of entrepreneurship and equitable access to business opportunities for all entrepreneurs in the country. But currently, the government of Rwanda, through the private sector, but also in collaboration with hubs, accelerator programs, and all in Rwanda, we've been working on Startup Act. I'm happy that this Startup Act actually is happening in Tanzania, if I'm not mistaken. You please update me on that. But I've read it somewhere. So this Startup Act really mainly for us as incubators and accelerator managers, we are looking forward to ease the life of investors, because we have that challenge. I remember there is a question for challenge, but one of the challenge really has been getting investors. You've already prepared a startup company, be it take or not, and at the end of the day, fail to get an investor which is investing in this. And when you look at our market, really cannot easily, help them to tap into and scale into a reasonable business. So this Startup Act, we're looking at the incentives that are really going to help the investors. Let's say 2 years tax-free or more. And also we are looking forward to also reduce more. Again, we are requesting the government to reduce more tax when it comes. It is 2 years, but again, to see whether it's 1 year tax-free, but we want to add more, because in 1 year, really, it runs very fast when you register business for that. So those are the few things. Maybe I'll really just do quickly of some of the challenges, because it's more on that. And one of the challenges I mentioned is financing part of it, which is cross-cuts the whole world. It's not only for us, but I say it has been really challenging. As I mentioned, really help startup companies grow, and at the end of the day, to get some money in order to scale up. And when you look at the population, let's say in Rwanda, 12 to 13 million, close to 14 now. But that market really, with 150 e-commerce platforms, really to get a unicorn company in that space is really challenging, right? So we need investors that can believe in our own companies here. And we've been doing
I don't know if it's my internet or...
Can you hear me?
It could be your internet, because I think I could hear Charles very clearly.
Cool.
Proceed, Charles, I think.
Thank you so much. So when you look at the government of Rwanda has also put down different, there's a bank specifically for that where the government, where the companies, innovators can really go and access loan on less requirements, not these things that are when you're looking for a loan and you want to finance your company, there's a lot of process. It really cuts down and on interest also, but especially there's specific sectors that are really focused on. But also there is BDF, which is really bridges the gap. So if you have an innovation and I really need money to finance your company, you go to BDF, which is you get the money from the BDF, and then the BDF act as a guarantee to make sure that you get money from the bank. So that institution is really a guarantor, to make sure that you get the money. Of course, they assess what you have and X, Y, Z into the business, but again, it's really easy, and many people have been getting this money. So tax regime for startups, I mentioned about it. The low chance of successful securing bids. In terms of the government bids, there's a lot of opportunity in that space, especially in the logistics. But when it comes to the procurement process, has been really hectic. A startup company is not easy, and we've been doing advocacy for that. And actually, it's really challenging until now. But it's something that we expect to get in our Startup Act, because it's something that we raised. High cost of transaction imposed by telecos. This has happened during COVID, whereby the government really worked with the telecoms and tried to reduce. And now we have seen there is a high competition between Airtel and MTN Rwanda to make sure that they support the ecosystem, and really like the last competition that happened by MTN giving almost 4 million Rwandan francs to different 1 million to different people that are coming up with a free API connection. It's really interesting when you look at the government's support. Of course, all that comes into one ministry that I mentioned, which is the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. So everyone finds, if you're coming up with an innovation, if you're coming up with any tech solution, as currently COVID really convinced us so much that technology is becoming part of our life. So in a nutshell, that's really, but really looking forward to see how we can tap into different opportunities in East Africa as we grow together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charles. I know we had said we are going to end this meeting at 12, so we are requesting if we could just add 10 more minutes, because there's one more very important question around how we can support, I think, startups, but also how can we collaborate more as enablers in East Africa. So I'll give a chance to Ine, who's from South Sudan, to first introduce herself. Like, I'll ask her so many questions, the ones I've asked all of you. Introduce yourself, tell us a bit about the South Sudanese ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, how it is, players, what is happening there, and then if you can also mention a bit about the policy environment. Is there any good policies that can support people to start businesses or work on businesses? If not, just give us like a bit of context. Carry on.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Apologies for joining late. I was in another meeting than I ran for this meeting. Yine Yenkinyika from South Sudan, and I think I'll give you an overview in 2 or 3 minutes. So about startup acts in South Sudan, I think there is none, because I've never come across it, apart from the legal policies which are in place. If you're going to start a business or a company, or you want to register your initiative, the procedures and the stages that you go through. So literally, banks don't give loans. So unless you get maybe a funder to give you that. Also, even if one thing that we experienced as goggles is, even if an investor is interested in supporting your idea, your innovation to scale it up, you just realize the whole bureaucratic government system is just a hindrance. Like for almost a year, we've been struggling to just get an approval from the Bureau of Standards regarding our sanitizer, but you realize there are a lot of games. So like startups, you really have to struggle until you get someone who is like in a higher position, or a funder who has a funder whom I think the government trusts. So it becomes very easy for them to actually work on your documents or whatever you want to do very fast, compared to when you're just coming, I'm a startup, this is what we are doing. So you realize there is no specific policy regarding that here, to be honest.
Thank you. And how about the ecosystem in general? Are there any players? So you can tell us, I know personally a bit about that, but I would like for you to tell us about the enablers. So are there hubs, are there initiatives working with interesting projects? How many are they? Are there startups or people who are trying to start businesses in South Sudan?
Interestingly, there are quite a number of hubs and startups in South Sudan, almost every now and then, but I think it comes back to sustainability and support. Even as a business, the taxes levied on you sometimes can be heavier that you feel like you shouldn't go on. So many start businesses, but these businesses don't grow and they become sustainable businesses, which actually become source of employment to others. So you realize out of 10, 3 of actually become successful. And the success comes in that maybe a donor or an investor is interested and they inject in money or income. So somehow that contributes to the success. But when you look at individual businesses as standalone, it becomes so hard. Yeah.
Thank you, Ine. So
you're welcome.
context around that. So I'll start with you. Do you think there are collaboration opportunities for us as a region, for especially enablers to be able to work together? And what can we do to support startups, especially in this case, what can the other enablers from across the region do to support startups from South Sudan? And I'll ask the same question to everybody.
I think the first thing is to start, I don't want to call it awareness, but maybe sensitization, and maybe look at having a startup act, because I think in such a way, it will be like an eye-opener to the key players in the South Sudan market and even to the government that actually this is very important. So I think when it comes to us, I think that can be a very good starting point to see, so that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then are there any collaboration opportunities for other enablers to work with enablers in South Sudan?
Definitely they are. They are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think with that, I think one of the things I would recommend is for us in this conversation to be able to reach out to each other and see if, there are more avenues for us to collaborate. So I'll ask the same question to Awil. Are there opportunities for enablers to collaborate across the region, and what can the others do to support entrepreneurs from Somalia?
Thank you very much, Sheila. There's a lot of opportunities to actually work with innovation hubs. Collaboration also opportunities, not only in Mogadishu, but also we have other federal member states. We have Somaliland, we have Puntland, we have Southwest State, Jubaland. All of them actually safe, and you can actually travel there and work with the those tech hubs and cooperate and work with them. We're talking about, let's say, if you have an impact fund and you would like to actually get startups who are working in different sectors of let's say health, education, or maybe child protection or things like that, you'll be able to actually those innovation hub or tech hubs can actually connect you to social enterprises that are actually working on different sectors of in the economy. When it comes to working collaborations, I think that's that. And also setting shop. I think other than that, other than just collaboration, working with someone across the region, is coming and actually setting up also shop is actually very easy. You just need to have someone to actually represent you. Hire someone, you can actually set up either shop here in Mogadishu or Garowe. I think those are the two major cities, in Mogadishu, and then there's Garowe in Jubaland, and then there's also Hargeisa. But you can actually get operation. I think getting the license and registration will actually take you less than a week. Yeah. If you have money, please come. Please, if you have money, we need a lot of money. So if you have money, we will welcome you. I'll technically, if you're coming to Mogadishu, I'll actually even come pick you up from the airport.
Thank you so much for extending that courtesy. I think we'll go to Charles. Same question.
Thank you so much. There is, I know whenever if you think of starting something, there's a where to start from. And I think this conversation really can tell that there's a need to work together. And once we all agree that there's a need to work together, then we are good to go. But which I can call ecosystem mapping. So what do we have? How can we collaborate? And how do we put in place, let's say, exchange programs, because I'll give an example of Ainia, like mentioned in there. This is where we are coming from. These things doesn't really happen a day. And the government really needs the private sector or innovators who are really passionate about what they are doing, what they are really looking for. And advocacy for entrepreneurs, it's going to be your word. I mean, going through the government meetings, if you get a chance and you talk about these things, because I mentioned about the Startup Act that are really working, we've been working on the last few months. We initiated that as in private sector, and then the government really saw the need to come up with this thing, because it's more like I remember creating a presentation and going to the ministry and all the concerned parties. And hey, the ministry through their partners, they really sponsored that and then hired a company to really do that. So how do you really leverage on experience that, let's say, coming from Rwanda, and then use that as a case study as you're talking to your government, you know? We can organize different events together in supporting these entrepreneurs. And these events really call upon these government officials. Let's say it rotates and comes to Rwanda, goes to South Sudan, goes to Burundi, and mention all the countries that are in East Africa. And then we use it as a platform in order to preach, if I can use that word, this innovation and entrepreneurship spirit to this government official. Trust me, it might not change them maybe on that day, but as we keep doing it, I'm sure we'll see the difference. And where possible, we can come up with build a partnership in implementing large-scale projects together. Let's say we come up with a cross-cutting project together and then come up with a, you know, and look for funds. I'm sure we can have, get more people that can really do that. So for me, practically, that's what I think. But all starts with this conversation that we are doing. So the question is, for me, how do we move forward? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I agree with everything that you've said. I think we'll go to Magdalene. Are there opportunities for collaboration with Kenya, with Kenyan enablers, and what can the other regional blocks do to support startups from Kenya?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have so many. There's so many ways we can work together, and there's so many opportunities. But first of all, we need to look at the East African community. We need to look at what are the gaps, what are the opportunities for us, even as we work together. First, you know, East Africa community as a common market, and it brings together 6 member states. And that means the East Africa market has about 146 million consumers. And what does this mean for startups and, you know, entrepreneurs and as entrepreneurship support organization? So we need to look at that. You know, if I start a business and, you know, I can be able to access, you know, the entire market, the entire East African market. It means there is so much, you know, opportunities that, you know, we can work together to ensure that for the startups. So recently, East Africa community removed trade tariffs to encourage regional integration amongst themselves. This has created an opportunity for us, the ESOs, to build, you know, partnership. And like Charles mentioned that, you know, they were able to push policies. They were able to influence policies in their country. You know, what can we do now as a region, as, you know, entrepreneurship support organization, to be also part of the conversation and to be also part of, you know, helping the East Africa community to be able to create enabling environment for, you know, entrepreneurs, and also, you know, support us, the incubation centers and all that. And, you know, also in East Africa community, you know, Kiswahili is a common language which binds East Africa community member states together. So that means we really, you know, understand each other. You know, we understand, you know, we almost in the same, you know, that's, of course, each country has its uniqueness, but also, you know, we speak the same language, you know, in terms of culture and all that. So that means there are so many opportunities for synergies and all that. And it provides a good platform for ESOs across the region to build strategic partnerships in different programs. In addition, you know, currency, we have a common currency that all the member states are using in commerce. So this has also boosted the collaboration in the region. So what does this mean? All these opportunities, you know, there are others, I can't, you know, mention all of them, the custom union protocol and all that. You know, looking at that, you know, what does this means to the ESOs? And I agree also with Charles, you know, coming together and, you know, running different programs together. And, you know, that all the development agencies and the funding institution, they look at us as one unit. So definitely, if we come together and apply for different funding opportunities, definitely they would they look at us as one. Yeah, there's also opportunity for skill transfer. There are things which we've implemented in Kenya. It has worked. What can we work with in other countries like Uganda, for example, Tanzania, and Burundi, and the other countries? How can they learn from us? How can we learn from them? And how can we come together? And I think also it starts with all this conversation. And that's it from my end. Back to you, Sheila.
Thank you so much for those wonderful points that I think we can easily, start to, from this discussion, at least I think, look for other ways to plug into those very useful suggestions. David, what can other points of collaboration, and what can the other East African enablers do to support startups from Burundi?
Thank you very much, Sheila, once again for the opportunity. And for me, what I can say, of course, hearing the exchange of ideas and what other countries have been able to accomplish in supporting the digital ecosystem and the startup ecosystem as well. I think one of the prime things is, of course, trying to see what's the way forward, elaborating a way forward, elaborating how best you can be able to collaborate. Of course, the first thing, it begins with advocating. And if we can be able to advocate for this, not just for us to do it in Burundi and others to do them.
We lost you briefly. Or is it me?
Yeah, so I think it's quiet.
Yeah, we
lost.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we lost him. I think he'll be back. I think his device keeps muting him somehow. I think he should be back in a sec. But I think maybe we can give a Pregod a chance. Oh, he's back. Okay. Carry on. We had lost you a bit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. Sorry. I think what I was saying is, if we can, of course, collaborate in advocacy, which means since some countries are already done step ahead, I think we can learn from them and collaborate in advocating for some policies and strategies and partnership. Of course, in Burundi, we can be able to advocate together, and it will be better for everyone. And I think that the second thing will be skills transfer, which means we all, as an organization, as a company in Burundi, as a hub in Burundi, we really need to learn from other hubs that have really developed their strategies and their concepts, and they have skills that they have already worked on and proved. And I think if you can be able
I think we lost you, David. Yeah.
I think my connection is on, I guess, sorry. Yeah, but that's basically it. Basically it's at least three things, which is advocacy and collaboration and skills transfer, and of course trying to see how we can elaborate joint projects together for East African startup ecosystems. And I think that would really be powerful for us to all move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Before this.
Before your internet messes things up. Thank you.
Exactly.
Prego. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. What I think we can co-create or collaborate on, for example, what the delegate from Rwanda was saying about having a one-stop center for everything. like registration and compliances. We are trying to push that in Tanzania, but the government is a little bit skeptical whether it will work or it will be against the, they have to protect the government, the public. So for example, right now in Tanzania, a business has to deal with 53 different authorities. So just to be, to have complied fully. So we're trying to push for a one-stop center where you can do everything like registration, pay your taxes, so as to not waste time going around for compliance. So when we tell them that, it's a nice idea, but they're a little bit skeptical whether it will backfire or something. But when we tell them that Rwanda has made it and probably organize a meeting with the Rwandan ecosystem and share the experiences, like the webinar that we did last year, I think it was the end of last year, on experience sharing on the Startup Act. It really opens up the eyes and it clears a lot of doubts. So that's one of the areas that I think we can collaborate, but also on funding, I think is stakeholders or enablers in the East African startup ecosystem. There's a chance to co-create consortiums for matching funds, for anything that we need to put together to attract capital and funding into is one of the biggest challenges that startups are facing. And I think as enablers, we can create those matching consortiums and attract funding and talents, and even convince large corporations to set their centers in East Africa, so that we can have look up to all infrastructures to push the entrepreneurs to do better. So briefly, those are one of the areas that I think we can collaborate and push. And I think I mentioned the markets before, so that will be the third one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pregod. I think if I had everybody right, there's definitely avenues for collaboration. There are ways we can start, continuing with these discussions, either among, the people here, but of course, to the larger, I think, extension of the ecosystem in East Africa. I think also skill transfer. And I think there's also an opportunity for us as enablers to also plug into the East Africa community, because I think this is essentially one of the reasons why they were set up, is to integrate the region further. And I feel if they're not deliberate around, innovation and creating a market that is enabling for startups to scale across the region, then I think they lose out. I think maybe one of the things, and sorry for putting Victor on the spot here, maybe one of the things we could do is maybe even come up with a report from this and say, this is some of the things that were discussed that maybe we can share with ESC, but we can also circulate it around with other ecosystem players, so that these are some of the things we can continue to have discussions around. I think we can also put, I think this recording, we will put it online in case people want to continue with the conversations that they were not able to listen in or contribute to, they can still do that in the chat. So thank you so much for sharing the very useful and insightful information about your ecosystem, about what we can do together. And next week, I think we will be having a similar series. We'll be talking to startups. So in case there are any startups in your countries that you feel we should definitely highlight, please just reach out to us, and I will be glad to invite them over. And then I will be more than happy to share what you guys are doing. So in case you have any programs or any blogs or any articles that you would want for us to share, please let us know. And I would encourage all of us to also do the same. Share, what other ecosystem players are doing in their countries with your networks. And I think that encourages more openness and collaboration approach when we start to, provide our platforms for people, I think, in other ecosystems as well. There was a question, I think, in the chat from Matia around what can be done, and I think it was handled by the speakers. Any closing remarks from our speakers? Unless, Victor, you have anything else to say?
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that we are not just having this kind of conversation for the sake of having it. But I think the idea is, number one, is to have the conversation. But what we'll do to crystallize this conversation, number one is, as Sheila has mentioned, we shall put this recording online. But most importantly is to try to aggregate all these conversations into practical things that can be done. So the first step, I think in the next 3 weeks or so, we shall strive as much as possible to crystallize and synthesize the conversation into a report, which of course you are all partners to. So you can share your logos, you can share the profile of your different organizations, so that we can be able to input into the report. We hope that we can be able to get audiences with different legislative and policy organs at the regional level. So I think the first one being the East African Community Secretariat. We are also thinking of reaching out to the COMESA Business Council and just have conversations around incorporating the innovation community into the strategic conversations that are happening in the region. So for me, I think those are the practical steps, and of course with the cascaded conversations around collaboration, we shall try as much as possible to synthesize and be able to bring out those issues that are coming up, so that we can have, as much as we are having conversations, we can have practical things that we can do as we move forward, so that maybe in the next year or so we can come back and say, okay, now we started this conversation here, and this is where we are at. So even if it's one step, I think that would be awesome. So for me, it's thank you for availing yourselves. As Sheila has mentioned, we are doing a similar conversation with startups next week. So if you can be able to suggest different startups in your country that you would want to participate in this conversation, we are more than happy to to host them. God bless you, everyone.